Hello everybody, this is Cheri at DJ Sundries, and I am so excited to bring you my first video using the Capsule paper crafting list. Now, if you didn't see the original video where I put together my paper crafting capsule, then I will put a link in the description box below. You can also find it up here in the corner because I really want to focus on using these supplies. Now, I am having some fun with it, and I decided I might as well, if I'm going to work with one particular stamp, maybe I can make some extra cards. So I don't know that we'll make them all today in this video, but I did start by pre-stamping my backgrounds. So one of the stamp sets in my capsule is this bold print cling stamp from Hero Arts. I'm not sure what it is called or if there's even a name on it. It's one I've had for maybe a year or two, 3, I don't know. And I bought it because I wanted to play with some bold background stamps. And this is the background stamp I chose for my capsule. The other stamp set that I know that I'm going to be using is this new Tim Holtz Floral Elements stamp set. And I've actually already pre-stamped some of the elements just for the sake of time. So let's pull one of the tools from the capsule, and that is my handy paper cutter here. And we're going to start by cutting some card bases. So I have a piece of this thick cardstock. Remember, I don't know what cardstock it is. It's just something that was in a loose leaf bag. However, I strongly feel like it was probably either Hobby Lobby 110-pound cardstock or it was Nina Crest Solar White 110-pound. No anything on it. I'm almost betting it was Hobby Lobby now that I think about it, because I would think, I know at Christmas time I was doing a lot with that particular paper, so I bet that that's what's left over. But that was just inside of my capsule. So I've cut 4 card bases here. And the other tool that I used was my embossing tool. I've already done the embossing just for the sake of time, because with that large of a background stamp, it took a while to get it embossed. So now let's pull our scoring tool out, which is another one of our capsule items. I'm hopeful that everything for this is coming out of the capsule, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm just going to start by scoring at 4 1/4 on all 4 of these card bases. Now I know for sure we will not use all 4 of them for this particular video, but I figure if I already have them pre-cut and pre-scored and pre-ready to go, that just saves me time later, right? I am going to be putting up a video, if I haven't already, about this Teflon bone folder that I have. This is something new to me, and I did a little test with it, and I have to say that I really am enjoying it. So I've not really done it in real life crafting yet. Actually, this is my first one. The only time I've used it is in the test, but so far I think I'm gonna like it. And I'll refer you back to that video, and I'll put it in the description box below, and if it's not up yet, once it goes up, I'll put it down below as well. So there's 3. Let's just go ahead and get our 4th, and then we'll have our card bases, and we'll be done with those. Okay, so I've got 4 card bases that I can set aside. Let's set that up here. Now the next thing that I used, I did use this, let's see, it's from the Rabbit Hole Design, my little embossing powder thing. That worked really well because I did 3 different bases. Now the first one I've already cut, but I wanted to try this in 3 different types of paper from the capsule kit. So this one is the Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor paper, because we're going to do some watercoloring on this one. Now I used the smoother side because in my experience, embossing on a rougher watercolor paper is difficult. I'm going to do something really simple with this 6x6 piece. This one, the black and white, haven't decided yet what I'm going to do with it. You can see I didn't do great embossing on it. And you know, when you're going on black cardstock with white embossing powder, it's not very forgiving. Again, that was also in the Crafty Capsule. And then the final one was just on another piece of that, oops, focus camera. It was just on another piece of that same cardstock that we're using from the bases, that really heavy weight. And I've already cut this one into 4 1/4 by 5, no, 4 by 5 1/4. Because I do have a plan for that one. And I use my Versamark also from the Capsule to do the embossing. So now let's start with the first card. So what I wanted to do is, for the first card, I wanted to take some of the floral images from that Tim Holtz kit. And oh, this is the first item I'm going to use that's not in my Crafty Capsule, but I mean, you have to have a palette, right, if you're going to be doing watercoloring. But I am going to pull my watercolors out, and I stamped these with the VersaFine that was in the craft kit. So I want to do some light watercoloring. Now, I am going to dry off my paintbrush because I don't want it sitting in the water. And then I think, just for the sake of time, we're going to hit this with the heat tool for just a second. And that should be pretty much dry. And you see you've got just that hint of orange in the middle, and just a nice summery flower. And now we are going to do a little bit of fussy cutting. Again, nothing fancy, just some fussy cutting. Okay, so we are back, and I have all of the pieces cut out. I actually cut this one apart into 2 smaller pieces, and I actually may do that with this one. I'm not sure yet, just for the sake of size, because they're a little bit bigger for where that I want to go. So now I want to go on to the next step. So what I've done is, while I was away, I stamped a bunch of sentiments. So I took this set also from the Capsule. And this is from Simon Says Stamp. It is called Beautiful Friend, and this is the one that I chose for my larger sentiments. And I stamped a few things. I chose 4 different ones, and I did it in 2 different colors. I chose Missing You, Hello Friend, I Love You, and Thank You Friend. And I chose that also using inks from the Capsule. These old, close to my heart, lemon color and tangerine. Now, I would suspect that these are old enough that these colors are no longer available, but they probably have something very comparable to this. Again, it's about using up old stuff and using creativity, so I wanted to pull out these that I haven't used in a very long time. Some of them, if ever. So what I did is I set them on my Tim Holtz stamp tool and just stamped them all at once. So now I have sentiments for other cards should I choose to use them. And then we will just decide what color of sentiment I want to use. Now the next thing that I did is also pre-prepped one, and then we'll do the second one together. I took a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch cardstock. I cut that from the same one that everything else. That's just like what these are, everything from that packet that we saw earlier. And I just ink blended in the lemon color the whole background of a piece, just in case I need it for a frame. So I have a second one here. I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to do the exact same thing using the tangerine. Now, again, remember we had 5 brushes in the Capsule. So I am going to take my first brush. Now this is the first time I've ever used this brush, so there's absolutely no ink on it. So it's coming in as kind of a very, not kind of, as a very, very clean brush. So it'll take some ink being applied before I have enough to really make a deep tangerine color, just like it did with the lemon. But I really like these summer colors, and I think that they'll go well with the flowers, even though we didn't paint them using the same ink. You know, I probably could have. I could have smooshed some ink on my glass mat, and that would have then been picked up with a paintbrush. And I could have done that, but I just didn't honestly even think about it. Now, I want to put up quite a depth of color. I don't want splotchiness here. Now, I will tell you that I think that some of the splotchiness that I don't think the camera's picking it up, but I'm seeing splotchiness to the eye, and I think that it will go ahead and smooth out as it dries as well. But again, I want really good, thick tangerine coverage, because if I use this, it will be used as a frame around whichever sentiment that I choose. If I don't use it, I have it in the stash for another time, right? And it's something that coordinates with everything, with some of the things in the capsule, but I'll have enough coordinating pieces that I can definitely quickly throw together another card. And even though I don't necessarily plan on doing that during this video, it's something that I can do very easily. Now I want to take a clean spot of paper towel, because I don't want my fingerprint in that ink up in the corner. And that ink's still fairly wet, so I'm just going to hold it down up here with my finger, but with the paper towel, so that I don't get my fingerprint on it. However, even if I did get a fingerprint on it, it really wouldn't be the end of the world, because I'm just cutting strips from this anyway. So I could probably cut around it. But again, anything I can do to avoid fingerprints, I will do. So we're just going to finish this up, put a little bit more ink blending, because I just want a little bit richer, deeper color of that tangerine. It is a beautiful summer color. It makes me think of creamsicles. I don't even like creamsicles, but it still makes me think of creamsicles and summer, and that's what this is all about. This would be great colors for that ice cream stamp that we have in the capsule. So, all right, we're going to call that good. So let me put the lid on this. I think on the camera it's probably coming up yellow, but when you see it next to the lemon, you should be able to see the contrast just a little bit. In real life, there is quite a contrast. So I'm just going to set that aside. I'm going to grab a clean baby wipe and clean off my mat and my stamp now, or my brush. Now obviously I'm not going to get it all clean, and I can work on that later to clean it, because I could only use 5 of these, and there are more than 5 color families, so that means I'm going to have to repurpose them in some cases, but I will work on that at a different time. I'm just going to set that over in the dryer. Okay, so now let's get our card assembled. So making sure that it's all nice and clean here, we can start with our card base. So I've got the pre-made card that we made at the beginning already here. And what I want to do is I want to start by taking this first piece. Now this is one of the concentric circles with the background, and it just gives us a tone on tone background, and basically what I'm going to have here is a tone on tone on tone. So I want to give it a little bit of dimension, and so to do that, if you could only see the mess that is behind here, and I don't even know what where my scissors went in this mess. Okay. So we're just going to cheat, and we're going to grab a different pair, right? I'm not going to be that married to the capsule that I have to use the scissors in the capsule only. Okay, so we're going to put some of this foam tape down, and I'm going to be very liberal with the foam tape. And the reason why is because if I end up mailing this card, which most of my cards do end up getting mailed, I don't want there to be any chances of it being collapsed in the middle. So I'm going to put a lot of foam tape on. Now there's another thing that I have seen that is really good to help with that, and that is, instead of using foam tape, I need to cut that straight. Instead of using foam tape for this kind of thing, to just layer different layers of cardstock underneath it. So that is an option. So if you want to avoid it collapsing in the middle, that's an option. Another option that you can use, and I have done this as well, and it's probably not my favorite option, but you can use kids fun foam. I do like the fact that I can get a whole piece, and that's really nice. The part that I don't like is that to stick it, I end up using glue. And when I'm using the glue, I tend to have warping in the paper, and I don't really like the warping. Whereas if I'm using foam tape, or where I'm putting lots of different pieces, or if I'm using several layers of cardstock, that won't happen. So to me, probably the best way is probably using several layers of cardstock. And probably in the long run, it's probably less expensive than using foam tape too, because foam tape, as you know, can get pretty spendy. But I am just going to grab these off. I'm only putting one layer on. I'm not trying to get a lot of dimension. I'm just trying to give us just enough of a contrast on our card that we, you know, just give it that little extra pop. Now, I don't know if you can see it, if my hands are right in the way right now, but there's a smudge on this card. Didn't bother me in the least because it's going to be completely covered up. In fact, I made sure that when I put my stuff together that I made sure that's on the front, because on the back you would see it, and this way you don't see the smudge. So now I'm just going to line up, and this is at 4 by 5¼ so it's just a tone-on-tone white, and it just gives me that extra little, I like to think of it as a finish look, and it just gives the card that little extra almost professional touch. Okay, so there we have our card, and then now we're going to place our flowers. Now I could do them up here and cascade down in the corner, but I think what I want to do is put this in the bottom corner here and just kind of arrange a little, almost a little bouquet that is going to fill in this corner just like so. And then we could tuck in some of our little branches and leaves, which is why I cut that one in half, because I knew that I didn't need the whole thing, and there's no sense just wasting it, right? So I cut that one in half. Let's see, I just want to get some nice fill in here, some greenery and some fill, and just give it that, let's see, let's go with this one, putting it down here. And you can see I'm just getting that arranged in there, and then we'll tuck some more pieces in there. So now it's time to pull out our Connect glue. So I am going to carefully pull off my center flower, because I want, and I'm going to just slide this one over carefully and slide this one over carefully, because I want to put these down as close to where I had them as possible. Again, I wish you could really see that little bit of interest it adds to the background to have those embossed tone-on-tone concentric circles on there. Just it's pretty. That's all I can say, is it's just pretty. Okay, so that one's going to go there. Starting from the bottom up. Now, you could, if you were fast and with wet glue, you can do this pretty easily actually. You could put your center flower down and then tuck these behind as well. It's just however you prefer to do it is fine. I want to do it this way just because I may end up rearranging my flowers just the tiniest bit based on the placement of the leaves. that gives me just a little bit there. All right, so now let's go back to our main flower. We know that that's going to go right about there, and I think that I can work quick enough. It almost would be pretty just with it without the others, wouldn't it? But I think I can work quick enough that I'm going to go ahead and put my main flower on, like so. And I want to get plenty of glue, but not so much that it oozes everywhere, because, well, that's just gross. But let's just put that there, set it down, and then we're going to come up with our yellow flower. And tuck this in kind of, where do I want it? Maybe there. And then here's our other yellow with our little hint of orange. And we'll tuck that in. Just raise it just the tiniest bit so I can tuck that in there. And that way you can still see your greenery. Okay, now I think I want to take this little piece, and actually I think I'm going to just cut it as well. And I'm just going to come down to make it look like it was cut that way, which is what I did with the other one that I cut. And then I have two little pieces here, and I'm going to tuck those in just because I just feel like sometimes for me I forget the extra greenery. I just forget to put in, and it really does add to it just by putting little bits in here and there. I'm going to put some in right in here as well. And that in just like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set something on that to put a little bit of weight. I think I'm going to just take my stamp press, just set that on there to put a little bit of weight and just kind of press that down, because I want to make sure that everything's going to stick down, but I don't necessarily want my big fingerprints in it. This would be a great time if you had a stamp block sitting out. I don't happen to have one, but that just long enough to let it sit there. Okay, so that sat there, kind of pressed it out. You could trim this one that's hanging off on the side, but I don't think it's going to hang so much that it would interfere with the envelope, so I like the overhang, so I'm going to leave it there. So now the last thing to do to finish off this card is choosing a sentiment. So we can go with the tangerine, but I feel like the tangerine is just not quite the right color. The only place that it really matches is the inside of this yellow flower, whereas I feel like the lemon is a better color here. And so I'm gonna set this aside since we're gonna go with the yellow, and I'm gonna pull my paper trimmer, and we're going to choose sentiments. Now I decided what I would do is, I know that I've got some waste down in this bottom corner, but I needed to be able to have a flat place to cut without ruining any of my sentiments. So I would rather have a little bit of waste so that I could get a straight cut. So there we've got Thank You Friend, but I really think the one I'm going to want is the Hello Friend. So again, I'm just eyeballing this, but I think that this is the one that I am going to use. So now that I've eyeballed it, now I can come back in and decide, okay, how close do I want to cut this? I like to use my paper cutter to line up so that I can get evenly around. So what do I mean by that? I mean that typically I would take this to the bottom just like I am here, and then I would take the high point of the H and line that up right against, oops, you can't even see. Line that up right against this edge here. So that gives me a little bit of a margin. And then I do that all the way around. High points, low points, outside edge points. And that way I have a pretty even sentiment all the way around as far as margin goes. And that's just how I do it. Some people get really precise and measure. I just don't do measuring. So now, however, I am going to measure it because I need to know how big to put my frame. So that is coming in at right at 1 3/4 by 1 1/4. So we are going to take the yellow piece here and we're going to cut this off at 2 inches. And then I said 1 1/4, so we're going to go 1 1/2. So I've got an extra 1/4 of an inch, which will give me a 1/16 of an inch all the way around my sentiment. So that'll just kind of help pop it up off the card. So now I'm just going to take my simple, oh, it's going to be like London Bridge is falling down. Where did my sentiment go? There we go. My sentiment here. Now, yes, you can see on the back, I had played with a different color there, and it wasn't a color that I wanted, so I just flipped it over and used the other side. No waste there, right? There we go. Hello, friend. Just like that. So now this has had some time to dry, and we can put our hello friend. Now I think what I'm going to do, my thought was to kind of put it on the side like that, but I think I want to bring it in just a little bit more in center like that. And because this is embossed, I don't want to use wet glue. I think I'm going to go ahead and pop that up on a little bit of foam tape. I honestly am not worried about the dimension that this adds for mailing, because I really don't think it's going to add enough dimension that it will matter. And I know I'm off camera getting this taped on, but I'm just putting tape on. So now what I'm going to do, just because I want to make sure that I get this on straight, is I'm going to put a few drops of glue on here. The reason I do that is that it gives me a little bit of wiggle room while I'm setting it on straight, so that if I don't get it on straight the first time, I can move it a little bit. And I can take, I forget that I have this new little cute ruler, this new little T-square, and we'll just line that up right there. And then that'll help me get that on there straight, like so. And there we've got our hello friend. So that is, we could leave the card just like that, or we could go back and add just a few little sequins. So let's see what that looks like. Does it add anything or does it not? No, I think I want the background to shine through, so I don't think we're going to add them this time. So that finishes up this card. Isn't that pretty? Now, I know that this was a really long video, but remember, we also worked on another background. So I'm not going to make a card with that today, but if you come back, I will show you how that turned out when it was dry, and we'll go ahead and put together a card with that one too. So thanks so much for stopping by today, and remember, take some time to enjoy the little things. Have a great day.